Hello, Memorial Basketball fans. I'm Charles Strayer.
And I'm Teddy Harless.
And welcome to another week of EC Memorial Basketball. We've got a lot of wins to report on, a lot of good things going on at the top of the conference leaderboard. So let's get started.
Yeah, and starting off with girls, we had some great wins last week. Starting off with Holman, a strong adjustment early. We were able to ride that all the way out into a big victory against Holman. And then we had a tough game against Hudson, in which we were able to carry some strong first half dominance going into halftime up 31-12 to a big win in what was one of our toughest games of the year. And part of that was due to our points in transition, where we were able to go 14-0 in points again in transition.
And that was a huge win for the girls, sort of solidifying that number one spot, meaning we can clinch the number one spot uncontested if we come away with some key wins. But before we get into those, we had some great individual performances. Raina Welsh, who, she's having a great game at least once a week, but she especially had a good one. We couldn't have gone making this video without talking about it. 27 points in 14 minutes. Not to mention 12 rebounds, and she was 12 for 15 from the field. It was just a stupendous performance from the senior at home.
Yeah, watching that game, it was clear the whole time that Holman did not have an answer for her down low in the paint. It was truly phenomenal to watch. What is, I think, just greatness. She was in control the whole time, and it was great to see.
And then in terms of our other high-scoring player, Nora Kling, of course, had an excellent game against Hudson. Against conference opponents, she has really come into her own, and this game was no exception. She had 17 points, 17 rebounds, 12 of which defensive rebounds, and 5 steals. So she was just all over the place, giving, ourselves a lot of chances on the other side of things, making sure to end possessions for the opponent. She has been just excellent in that role, and she's capping off another great game against a conference rival.
Yeah, just making big differences in a lot of key areas, points, rebounds, steals. She was doing a whole lot of stuff for the team.
It was a true fundamental performance, really.
Mm-hmm. And someone who we've been talking about and watching her grow over the course of this season, really, Marley Ferguson continued her growth with another fantastic game against Hudson. 12 points, 2 for 3 from the three-point line, and 3 steals.
And I think, like you were saying on Marley Ferguson, she has been getting a couple starts here and there since about the middle of the season, and going down the stretch, she has not disappointed. So definitely a player you need to keep your eyes out for. You've got Nora Kling and Raina Welsh sometimes overshadowing a couple of those players that work really well in those support roles. And it's nice to see such a selfless unit, from the top scorers like Welsh and Kling to all of those support roles. It's great to see the entire team come around for one of those big victories like the one we saw over Hudson.
Yeah, Marley Ferguson has really been doing great in that role as a consistent starter, sort of rounding out the squad and making some of those key tertiary plays.
Yeah. And I think as we go ahead, it's important to just keep in mind that team play, because it's going to come in handy here going into our game. We have 2 home games here for the girls against Menominee on Tuesday, which you likely have already seen. And then we are playing Rice Lake for the big one on Thursday. That's likely to determine our first place spot.
Yeah, and really the key for both of these games, I think, is just to narrow those interior passing lanes. That's where teams can get over on us a little bit, is if we let them have those interior passing lanes. It can give them opportunities. But if we force them around the perimeter, that's where we end up getting a lot of those steals, a lot of those points in transition, just quick defensive strikes around the perimeter that really allows us to get those fast breaks and transition points.
Yeah, and transition points, that's something we did really well against Hudson, a team who has some size on us in the conference. And of course, Adeline Shepley and Brooklyn Burt are 2 players that are going to be top targets in the paint, and they have contributed to those records for Menominee and Rice Lake. So it's important to consider that should we narrow down those passing lanes and force them around the perimeter, get those points in transition like we saw our girls doing so well in the past couple weeks, it should be just a matter of finishing the opponent off, completing the sweep for both teams, and securing a well-deserved number one spot in the BRC.
Yeah, for sure. And moving on to boys basketball, they had a big week against some tough conference opponents, River Falls and Hudson last week. And against Hudson, we actually lost in the turnover battle, which is something you don't see that often from this team, especially in a win like this. Mm-hmm. We lost 15-24, which 24 is the most turnovers we've had all season.
By far.
Yeah, we have an 11.8 average, so that's like over double the average. And yeah, that Hudson defense was really able to contribute to that closer game with 13 steals compared to our 8.
Yeah, and it was really an excellent game, especially in hindsight, considering the final score. Both teams neck and neck. It was a real dogfight, really all that we wanted to see in a battle for supremacy over the BRC. We were able to get the sweep, and Hudson was not going to let us get to it easily. But I think that what really set us apart, what gave us the edge to get ahead of Hudson and complete the sweep in the end, was our team-minded play and especially our passing. Our passing was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. There were tons of people out there delivering excellent passes. Cooper Jesperson, Bryce Hedtke, Julius Clark, all delivering dimes down low in the paint. And it was really great to see, especially in that electric environment we saw in that conference-defining matchup against Hudson.
And another important stat category to look at here is that we were able to out-rebound Hudson 42-22, which gave us a lot of opportunities to sustain possessions and end possessions that Hudson was looking to continue. Jace Matasinski, in particular, we were seeing him. He wasn't hitting as many shots as he usually does. He went 0 for 6 from the three-point line, in fact. But something that was able to keep Hudson down when we were starting to get that lead in the second half was being able to snatch up those boards. Wes Mboga, definitely a big contributor to that sort of play, as he always is. Just making sure that we were able to get second chance points as well. We outscored them 10-2 in that fashion, and it's such a close game as that one. All of those count.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And taking a look at some more of the individual play, we saw some great performances from a couple of our players in that game against Hudson. Bryce Hedtke, for one, had a phenomenal game. 16 points, 4 for 6 from the three-point line. And he was really activating that three-point threat as well as delivering some nice passes, too.
Yeah, he was accurate to a T in that game against Hudson, and it really contributed to some forward momentum on the offensive side of things. Well, like we were saying about Matasinski there a second ago, the three-point threat really was dormant for both teams for the majority of the contest, so having Hedtke be able to step up, hit the threes, and taking smart threes, I'll add as well, and coming up in clutch in that regard really helped turn the tide and keep us ahead in that second half.
Another person who had an outstanding game against Hudson, Cooper Jesperson. He had 22 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and 2 electrifying blocks, which led the team in all 5 of those categories.
And he was a real hustle player in this one. I mean, don't get me wrong, he always is. But it was especially evident that Hudson was not going to go down without a fight, and Jesperson was willing to match that energy in spades. I think especially as a player who has a lot of attention, definitely has a bit of a target on his back in the film room for all of these conference opponents who have already seen him once. I think that Jesperson really, he took the assignment to the next level and he turned it back onto Hudson. He dialed up the energy to 11 and he sustained that for the entire game, and that really contributed to the energy that Memorial brought on the court at all times.
Yeah, you could tell they were really trying to bring a lot of focus his way and attention his way, and he was still able to put up a phenomenal performance, as well as, like you said, that hustle coming through in the defensive play, where he got 2 chase down blocks that were phenomenal to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And to keep those clean as well, it was a really excellent game. A lot of spectacle, a lot of back and forth. Really all you could have asked for a Friday night game at the Eagles' Nest.
Mm-hmm. And looking forward, we're number 1. We have clinched the number 1 spot in the BRC, but we've still got some important matchups coming up to determine playoff seeding. We're playing Rice Lake at Rice Lake on Friday, and on Saturday we are playing Totino Grace, which is a team from Minnesota. We ended up getting our match against Bern. That got canceled, and now we are playing Totino Grace this weekend instead.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so that Breck game, it was eventually postponed due to the weather, as most of you fans will already know. However, still a very similar game I think we're seeing, and this team has an excellent record, suggesting that we might actually be playing up a little bit compared to our previous matchup with a cross-state showdown here. They're 14-5 overall as of right now, and I think we just need to keep in mind a lot of the same things we were bringing up last week regarding Breck, is that we simply need to elevate our level of play. Take what we learned with Hudson, where they were definitely playing like a whole new team. They kicked it into a higher gear than we saw at Hudson, and we were able to rise to the challenge quite well, I think. So it's just kind of capturing that energy and carrying momentum with it. We got some words with Coach Brisky, and he was saying a lot of those types of things where it's just a matter of maintaining that intensity. And he's curated this schedule to play some hard teams. This has not been an easy schedule that we've been facing down. And those 3 losses we're seeing behind me there have been hard-fought losses with absolute effort put into each and every one of them. So this is a great opportunity to, at the close of the season, really show Minnesota what we're made of. Yeah, and not to mention Rice Lake as well, before we close things out. Another conference opponent here, and while we've secured the ideal spot in the BRC, we're definitely not going to let them off easy. Something that we need to look at, you may remember we had that buzzer beater fail. They had the opportunity to try and come back after that travel call, and they could not finish it off at the Eagles' Nest. We were able to barely get a victory over the Warriors. And I think that's something that we're going to need to look at here as points in the paint. We were outscored by them points in the paint 18-28, which is something that, it's a very fundamental aspect of basketball, but especially now that we've seen them once, that's something we're going to need to make sure is at our best.
Yeah, and I think that Rice Lake game, we just need to make sure we come in prepared for it, come in better looking than last time, because that really is a team that we should be able to handle. Yeah, like I said, exciting week of basketball coming up. Should be good to watch. And as always, go Abes!
Hi everybody, I'm Aidan Rickert, Eagle Eyes, Other Guy. If you're interested in more MHS sports content, be sure to check out our TikTok, Instagram, and check out some of the other videos on our YouTube channel. And while you're at it, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more. Go Abes!